I wasn't for sure what to expect, and I had no idea there would be this many here tonight, and now I really regret not studying. And boy, whoa, I didn't know we'd have this many. I wish I'd given it a little bit of thought. I told Tim, I asked him in the back, I said, what I say about, I can give you some bio information, and I remembered sending him something, but for the life of me, I couldn't remember what I said because that was after my surgery when I was on a little pain medication, and so I didn't know what I said, but thank you for the kind words. I'm not for sure if it all applied to me. I think I got some of that off the internet, to be real honest. I can't tell you how much and how long I have looked forward to being with you tonight. I had that back surgery on May 19th, and it's called anterior lumbar interbody fusion. So they open you up in your abdomen, 4 incisions in my back. I have 8 screws and rods in my spine. They fused 3 vertebrae. And without whining and complaining, because I'm actually past that point, I don't need whining and complaining, and I don't need sympathy anymore. But let me tell you, it's pretty painful. It's pretty painful. And I remember every night for 2 or 3 weeks getting up in the middle of the night. I could sleep maybe, kind of, sort of, for 2 or 3 hours. I'd get up at 2 or 2:30, go into the living room, open my Bible, and read Psalms 15. And of course, there's power in the Word of God, and that gave me comfort. And then I kept thinking, you know what, if I can make it till August 20th, I'm going to feel so much better. And I do. And that's not where I want it to be, and that's why we have to have the stool. I'll try to stand, but I don't know if I can stand this long. And I don't even know if you can see me if I sit right here, so we'll see how that goes. But we feel good just to get out of town. This is our 4th trip out of Bartlesville since May 19, and the other 3 were doctor's appointments. That's all we've been able to do. And so we look forward. We actually went to Owasso and ate at Cracker Barrel, and one of our favorite places. And we got to do that, and it's a joy to be with you tonight. As Tim mentioned, we've got several people, and actually a number of people that have kind of come and gone from Bartlesville through this church, and saw Bruce Binkley Bruce and Kim were there for a few years back in the early 80s, and Brent and Barbara Saffel. Brent grew up in Bartlesville. I did their wedding for the 2 of them. I didn't do Bruce and Kim's. I can't remember, I was little, but I think I was the ring bearer at their wedding. Or something. You know, when you're 3 or 4, you don't have a vivid memory of those times. So I don't know for sure about that. Judy Davidson, I think. Judy, where are you? Hello. And I'll see you when we get finished. I heard you were here. And so anyway, it's good to be with all of you. As Tim said, 37 years in Bartlesville. And I went there as the youth minister. It was the 6th and Dewey Church of Christ at that time. And then we moved, and it became the Woodland Church of Christ. Then we merged with another church and became the Adams Boulevard Church of Christ in 1988. So we've been there a very long time. And people ask me, you know, how have you made it that long at one church? And do you ever think about leaving? And I said, well, maybe 2 or 3 times a day, but you know, you just keep chugging along, and then sometimes someone will ask, well, do you think the elders have ever thought about asking you to leave? And I said, well, you know, 2 or 3 times a month, you know, they'll come up to me, one will come up to me and say, Dave, have you found another spot somewhere? I said, no, I've been kind of looking, like. How long has that been going on? About 36 years. But, you know, they keep paying me and I keep staying. I don't know. But we love it there. We've got 2 grown children and 4 grandchildren. I'm going to tell you these 2 quick little stories on the 4th, and that's our little 3-year-old granddaughter. And then if I have any time left, we'll get to the lesson. When Tim told me 35 or 40 minutes, I thought, my goodness, I don't know if I can talk 35 or... Well, I can talk that long, but that's a long time. But let me tell you these 2 cute little stories, and then we'll jump in here. My little 3-year-old granddaughter's absolutely adorable, the apple of my eye, precious as she can be, beautiful, sweet, great personality. We go out on the trampoline every once in a while in the backyard, and we're laying there, and we talk, and there's a big tree that overhangs that trampoline, and one day she was looking up there, and there was a dead branch there, and she says, "Papa, there's a dead branch." I said, "Sure is." She said, "Well, how'd that happen?" I said, "Well, all living things die. Plants die, flowers die, trees die, birds, fish, people." And she said, "Are you going to die?" I said, "Yeah, all of us will die." She said, without missing a beat, she said, "We'll do it later." And then for the last 3 months with this back, every time the grandchildren are over and they don't pick up or there's something on the floor I need, I ask one of them to, "Papa can't bend over, would you get that for me?" That's happened probably 100 times, including her, many times. Last night they were getting ready to leave the house and she didn't want to leave our house. And she was absolutely pitching a royal fit. As her mother was dragging her off my lap and getting her out the door, she says, "My pony, my pony." And I knew where it was at, by the TV, by our sofa. And I walk over there and I brace myself, put my hand on the sofa, and I bend down to get the pony and get back up with the pony. And she stops crying and she says, "You can bend over." Like all this time I've been abusing her by having her. Psalms 15 is one of my favorite psalms, obviously why I chose it. One time, about 8 or 10 years ago, I did an entire 13-week series on this psalm, and they're just 5 verses. So tonight we're going to kind of just skim over it a little bit. So I want to read it to you first. "Lord, who may dwell in your sacred tent? Who may live on your holy mountain? The one whose walk is blameless, who does what is righteous, who speaks the truth from their heart, whose tongue utters no slander, who does no wrong to a neighbor and casts no slur on others, who despises a vile person but honors those who fear the Lord, who keeps an oath even when it hurts and does not change their mind, who lends money to the poor without interest, who does not accept a bribe against the innocent. Whoever does these things will never be shaken." So David asked this question, "Lord, who may dwell in your sacred tent? Who may live on your holy mountain?" And I really debated which translation. This is the NIV, which probably most of you use. But that word dwell is also the word for sojourn. Your Bible may have abide. In the sacred tent. So what David is asking here, he asked this question, and then through divine inspiration, he answers it. Who can dwell with God? Who can dwell with God? I don't know if any of you have been to Eureka Springs to the Passion Play and have seen that tabernacle they have. Have you seen that? In Israel, in the wilderness of Judah, there was for 6 years. It's gone now, but I got to see it. You come up over a hill, and in the desert, a group had constructed to scale a tabernacle. And let me tell you, when you look out on it, I mean, it just takes your breath away. Not because of the structure, but if you know the history of the tabernacle, you know that's where God dwelt. And it just hits you as you see that. That's what it would have looked like way back in the day when Moses was given those instructions on how to build that. I find this interesting. The entire creation story is given in one chapter. It takes 6 chapters in Exodus 25 through 30 to describe the tabernacle. And of course, in the tabernacle was the Ark of the Covenant, that little over 4 foot by a little over 2 foot by a little over 2 foot box. But it was where God dwelt. David is saying, how can you dwell there? How can you dwell with God? And then he refers to the holy mountain, which the holy mountain is Zion, Jerusalem, where the temple was built. Now the temple has not been built yet because his son, as you know, built the temple. Probably when this was written, scholars believe that the Ark of the Covenant had probably been moved at this time from where the last mention of the tabernacle was, up in Gibeon, just about 8 miles from Jerusalem, down onto Mount Moriah. So the Ark of the Covenant was there awaiting its new home. So David says, you know, how can we be there? How can we dwell there? How can we dwell with God? And this is how he answers. The one whose walk is blameless, who does what is righteous. That word blameless there is used, as you probably know, in the New Testament in describing what an elder should be. In Titus 1, 1 Timothy 3, the elder should be what? Blameless. The elder should be above reproach. I have to be very, very honest with you. In my 37 years, I've only known a handful of people that I would consider blameless. So Dave, not all of your elders are blameless. Not in the sense that I understand it. Does that mean they shouldn't be elders? No, I'm not saying that at all, because they're all good men. I've worked with a lot of good men over the years. But this is such a lofty goal, to be blameless. So what's he talking about there? He's talking about our reputation. You know, and I'll tell you what, it's hard. I've told so many people over the years, if you lose your reputation, buddy, it's gone. And it takes so very, very long to get that back. I was a youth minister for, let's see, how long? About 13, 14, 15 years before I transitioned into family ministry. And the last 2 years, up until just a few months ago, my son and I actually took over the youth program again. We've hired a youth minister just in the last couple weeks. I've worked with young people for a long, long time. I can't tell you how many devotionals I've had with kids talking about their reputation, because you have to guard that with everything you've got, because if you lose it, it is so very, very hard to get it back. So to be blameless is so challenging for us, to be truly blameless in this sense. It says he does what is righteous, what is right. My dad used to always tell me, he said, just do the right thing. You know, just do the right thing. And sometimes it's hard to sort out. You know, we have a lot of instructions in God's Word on what to do, but there's a lot of things and a lot of decisions you have to make that we just can't open this book and find the answer to that. And so many times you just have to say, you know, I'm just going to do the right thing. I'm going to hope and pray that I'm making the right decision here. I want to do the right thing. I want to live righteously before God. I want all of my decisions to be godly. I want to seek His counsel at every turn because I want to be a righteous person. David says if you're going to dwell with God, if you want to walk with God, you've got to be blameless and you've got to be righteous. And I want you to notice the word there is the one whose talk is blameless. No, it's the one whose walk is blameless. What do you do every day of your life? It's your walk that matters. He said he speaks the truth from the heart, and it's always about the heart. It's always about the heart. And he speaks the truth from his heart. Is telling the truth easy? Well, it probably should be, but I think if all of us were honest and look deep inside us and look at our past, have you always been truthful in everything that you've done? I'm talking about everything, including your taxes. Have you always been truthful? Have you always wanted to speak the truth when you speak to someone? Because the temptation is always there to stretch that story a little bit. One of the preachers that I admired so much from the time way back in college when I met this guy, he was, many of you would know his name if I were to speak it today. He was a very, very popular speaker and a well-known preacher in the churches of Christ. And he got in the habit, as often people do, stretching the truth a little bit. And then pretty soon, those stories that he was telling, not necessarily his stories. And then I wasn't talking personally to him, but I was in a group setting when he was talking to us about how all this happened. So you think, well, I'm a Christian, I'm going to tell the truth, but boy, I'll tell you what, it can slip up on you. And it did him. And it ruined his reputation. And he lost the job that he'd had. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart. And then I was reminded that the guy that wrote these words was not necessarily the most perfect person that's ever walked the face of the earth, because he had his challenges as well. Always speak the truth. Whose tongue utters no slander, who does no wrong to a neighbor, and cast no slur on others. That expression, cast no slur, I'm not for sure why. And when the NIV is every so often they update it a little bit, and they've changed some of the wording from this translation to the last one. But they've kept this one in there, and I'm not for sure why, because we don't use that expression or that word slur very often. You know, how are you doing today? Well, pretty good. I haven't slurred anybody. We just don't. But what he's talking about here again is our tongue and how do we use it. And he says the tongue utters no slander. How do we treat people? How do we treat our neighbors? What are we saying about folks? I have, in my 37 years, I have seen so many problems and so many lives hurt, damaged, and sometimes destroyed by the tongue, by gossip. It used to be that only happened with this tongue that's in our mouth. But now today with social media, it happens, oh my goodness, and it happens so often and it happens so many times. I can't begin to tell you. I had a girl in my office this morning, a 20-year-old girl who was absolutely teetotally heartbroken. I haven't had anyone in my office that cried like she cried. She was in there for over an hour in a very long time. And she actually wasn't the one who was offended. She was the one who had done the offending. And it absolutely broke my heart. it is probably, I hope and pray not, and we're trying to help her, probably has ruined her marriage. She's 20 years old. When you speak about someone, you know the old expression, if you don't have anything good to say about someone, don't say anything at all. Oh my, I can't tell you how true that is. And before you, and I'll tell you, this happens, I'm not talking about in our community, I'm talking about in our church. And unfortunately, I don't know any stories about any of you guys here, but I know that it happens here too because you're people, and it happens to us as people. But I'm telling you, if there's one thing that all of us need to get a handle on, it's our tongue. It is something that's so close to my heart because I've seen it so many, many times. I've seen it do great damages to churches. I've seen churches just torn up because somebody is saying the wrong thing or lying about someone, and here you go. And it's such a shame, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. I don't know of anything worse in the church than people that can't get a grip on that little thing that's inside their mouth. How do you treat your neighbor? Well, who's your neighbor? Well, it's not just the people. We know that. It's not just the people that live next door to us. But it's everybody you come into contact with. It's people that are around you. But I think it's everybody that you meet, in this sense, becomes your neighbor. You know, what I want to do is make a conscious effort to be an encourager. That's the way I want to live my life. I want to live my life, and I've tried to live my life that way. I just want to encourage people. And the older I get, and the closer I get to those pearly gates, I want to focus on doing everything I can to build people up. You know, I am out of the business of tearing people down. I just don't have anything to do with it. You know, again, somebody else can. Let the younger folks do that. You know, but I'm not going to. But I want to be an encourager. And it is. And we stopped at the Cracker Barrel. I told you a little while ago. You know, we got some. First thing they bring us out is our biscuits. I love biscuits. I mean, I really love biscuits. And so we get our biscuits. And we got there kind of early, and you know, they had prepared a bunch of biscuits. And so they weren't the freshest biscuits I've ever had, a little crusty on the bottom. You know, we could tell that they had sat there a while. And so often, you know, people are going to gripe about that. And I've heard people just rip. I've been with people, unfortunately, sadly, just rip the waitress because something's not right. I'm thinking, why would you do that? I would not do that over a biscuit. You know, when most of the world goes hungry and my biscuit's not just as hot and fresh as I think it should be, over a biscuit? How ridiculous. You know, I would rather give her a really good tip. I like giving good tips because, you know, I want to encourage people. Spend your life encouraging and loving people. You be the best neighbor that you can be. Because guess what? As you've heard so many times, you may be the only Jesus those folks ever see and never come into contact with. So you be the best you can be. And you spend your life loving people and encouraging people and strengthening people and comforting people. I have a new appreciation after my experience with this back surgery, a new appreciation for people who are in excruciating pain. And I don't care if that pain, because I had both. I mean, and many of you guys have had serious surgeries like that. It's not only the physical pain that gets you, it's the emotional pain, the depression that goes with it. I had that as well. I have a new appreciation for people who are suffering in pain. Absolutely heartbreaking that Robin Williams and so many people like him didn't have someone there when he was in excruciating pain to turn to. Absolutely heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. This girl this morning, it's been a while since I've seen someone in that much pain. She was suicidal. As I got her some help this morning. So do all of us need someone who can really be there for us? And the answer to that is yes. Every one of us. If you haven't, you will. If you haven't suffered great trials in this life, you will. It's a matter of time. And the younger folks here, and when you're little, Tim, you got small children, and you think, oh, this is so hard, and it is. But I'll tell you what, it's nothing to compare with the things you'll have happen as you get older. My mother passed away at 97 and a half last February. I did her funeral. An incredible woman, but she had a lot of things to deal with in life. Had a pretty tough life, really. I've taken care of her finances for years and been right there. We were 600 miles apart, but took care of her from long distance. She had a tough life. And it was hard on me and hard on the family, and I kept telling people, raising little kids, that's nothing to compare with dealing with family issues as your family gets older. Who despises a vile person but honors those who fear the Lord? And the clock is ticking. Despises a vile person. We don't respect those who do wrong. Now, are we going to try to help those folks who do wrong? Yes. Am I going to respect them? I'm not. I used to tell my kids, and please don't, I need more time to talk about this because I don't want you to misunderstand me. But when our kids were small, and this is the lesson I preach to our teenagers, evil companions corrupt good morals. You mess around, you run with the wrong kind of kids, and guess what? You might think you're going to be a good example for them, and you're going to get them coming to church. But let me tell you, I just want to be honest. 95, 96, 97, 98, 99% of the time, it's going to go the other way. I've seen it happen over and over and over and over again. Doesn't mean you don't love those folks. You do everything you can to encourage those folks, to bring those folks to the Lord, but you've got to be very, very careful in doing that. I want to honor those who fear the Lord. I want to hold those folks in high esteem. There are so many people in my life that are responsible for where I am today, because without them, I don't know where I'd be, especially in my younger years. People that I really respected. I honor those people. I hold those people up. They were my examples, my mentors. You keep an oath even when it hurts. I'll tell you a little story. Shirley doesn't know this, but I'm getting ready to tell her too. At camp, at our second session of camp this summer, we had a young man who had recently gotten out of the military, really a good young man. He'd helped us at camp before the last couple years. He was a former member of our church and known him a lot since he was a little bitty boy. And so hadn't found a job yet. We begged him to come out to camp. We had to add an extra boys' cabin. We needed an extra counselor. So Jory agreed to come out there. As he was pulling into Osage Hill State Park, he rolled, I guess you'd say, he rolled through the stop sign. The park ranger was coming toward him and stopped him and wrote him a ticket. Now, he had no clue what the ticket was. And so he was very distraught over something, and my son, I said, "What's wrong with Jory?" And he said, "Well, he got stopped by the park ranger up there and gave him a ticket for rolling through a stop sign." So I talked to him about it, and he was upset. And I said, "Look," I said, don't just quit worrying. I don't want this to ruin your week. It's going to be okay. I said, I'll pay half of it. Don't worry about it. I'm thinking it's like $25 or $30. So he calls me. When did Jory stop by the house? Last Saturday or something. And Saturday morning, I was back in the den riding my bike. And he calls me and he says, he texts me and he said, "You up?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay." And I said, "Did you find out about that ticket?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, how much was it then?" So then I call him. We go back and forth with the text thing. And I just call him. And he said, "Well, Dave," he said, because the park superintendent says, whatever it is, go appear in court over at Pawhuska and they'll reduce it for you. And so he said, "Well, Dave," he said, I went over there and he said that the judge wouldn't reduce my ticket. And I said, "Well, okay." I said, how much was your ticket then?" I'm thinking, okay, $75 or $80, $40, but whatever. He says, $211. Oh my. So I thought, okay, see, I've been reading this, I told you, for several months. And you keep an oath even when it hurt, and it hurt. It hurt. I happened to have a $100 bill in my billfold, so I pulled that out and gave him a few more dollars, and I still owe him 2 or 3. We called it good. Sometime it hurts, but I'm telling you, this is what Jesus taught us: let your yes be yes and your no be no. You be a person of your word regardless. You do what is right regardless. Who lends money to the poor without interest, who does not accept a bribe against the innocent. Back in the Old Testament, again, this requires a lot of time and we don't have it, but you were not allowed to charge interest on money. You were not allowed to ever take advantage of people. Not so today. Not so today. So when he says, don't lend money to the poor, don't charge interest, what he's saying is, don't mistreat people. Treat people right. Just treat people right. Don't ever take advantage of another person. And we read about it every single day in the newspaper. Every single day. There was a recent case in Bartlesville, you probably haven't heard of this down there, where a guy and his associate defrauded some of our local folks of millions of dollars. I'm thinking, how in the world do you think you're going to get away with this? Now, this was an intelligent man and an intelligent woman, and they defrauded people of millions of dollars. And in smaller ways, people, even people of high integrity, take advantage of others. David said, you want to live a blameless life and you want to walk with God, you do these things. You do these things. And he said, if you do, you will never be shaken. I mentioned Robin Williams, and we were driving down here and a song came on the radio, and it was Whitney Houston, and what a gorgeous voice she had, and her life died. She died tragically in a similar way, and there's just so many people. I mean, it's every week you read or hear of someone, high-profile person, who things go terribly wrong. And I'm thinking, if they had a solid foundation, if they just had a solid foundation, none of this would happen. It just wouldn't. And so what David is trying to tell us here, you want to walk with God? You want to dwell in that holy tent? You want to abide on the holy mountain? then you be this kind of a person. Back in the Old Testament days, are we out of time? I didn't hear that bell you told me about. We are out of time? Okay, we're out of time. I guess the bell rang. Hey, look, great to be back. I guess I'll be back up here to do a devotional thought in just a minute.